Cyndee Haydon here, and again, another in our series of coping with COVID, kind of what things we're thinking about and what things maybe we should be thinking about. So today I've invited Noel White, who is an accomplished probate attorney in the Tampa Bay area. I've known her for a long time. She's helped our clients, and I just give her a minute to introduce herself, but then also I just want to ask her some questions about some things that people have been asking me and maybe find out what people are asking her. So Noel, thanks for being with us today. Tell us a little bit about yourself and just let people meet you a little bit.
Well, thank you, Cyndee, for inviting to talk about this really important topic. As you said, my name is Noel White. My firm is actually Sylvia Noel White, PA. I've been practicing since 1989, graduated from Stetson College of Law, and my husband actually recently joined my practice, so he's working with me. His name is Jack White, and we mainly practice in the areas of wills, trust, estates, trust administration, and then Jack also does some litigation.
And probate when someone passes away too, right?
Yes. Oh, yes, absolutely.
So we have that in common. We both have married to Jacks, and they're our business partners too. So lucky women. So tell me, are you finding that people right now, what I'm noticing is, quite honestly, I have had this week 2 friends pass away, and, not solely from COVID-19, but complications. They had compromised health situations. And so I'm just, I'm noticing on people's mind, they're really contemplating more, the mortality could be just, again, more real than we think. And so I'm hearing people ask about questions about, if I were to end up in the hospital or couldn't, talk, or I'm on a respirator or ventilator, can my family help me? And I'm just curious, like, what answers or what things they should be doing, and then, how we make sure people around us know, so that if something happens, that we could help them.
Really great question. So I've actually had a lot of phone calls from people who, now that they're home, they're actually thinking about things and about getting things in order, because so often people are so busy and they don't want to think about it, because we can't go through life thinking, oh yeah, I'm going to die tomorrow. However, in reality, yeah, we could. Whether it's COVID, more likely it's going to be a car accident if you drive in Pinellas County. So those are the big considerations. So people really need to look at their affairs, how things are titled. So for example, homes, right in your field, Cyndee, is a lot of people from up north move from up north down to Florida, and their spouse may be moving later or what have you, and for whatever reason the house is named in just one person's name. And so what people don't realize, just because you're married does not mean things automatically go to your spouse. And so if a person dies owning the home in their name alone, and they pass away, then the property actually has to go through probate. Now, what the good thing about if you do a will is going to direct how your assets are going to go when you die. I want to stress, a will does not avoid probate. What a will does is generally serves as a map saying, this is how I want my assets to go when I die. Probate is the legal process of getting assets out of a dead person's name into the name of beneficiaries. But what's really important is the definition of assets. The definition of assets that would have to go through probate is anything that's owned by the dead person in their name alone. So if they have joint ownership on accounts, on real estate, if they have beneficiary designations, life insurance, retirement plans, all of those types of things, then those would not be subject to probate. It would go to the named beneficiaries. And I'm just talking really in generalities, but this is one of the real important things when a person sits down with an experienced attorney who has estate planning, of reviewing everything. It's not just drafting a bunch of documents. It's making sure, have you checked your beneficiary designations? So for
Right.
example, I met with a husband and they're trying to get some of their documents in order. And I said, is your name, are you and your wife, are you both on the deed to the house? Oh yeah, oh yeah. Well, I went and I looked while he was in my office. Guess what? No, it's just him. And to make that, and so not only would it have to go through probate, but there can be real complications if you have minor children, and whether or not it won't all go to your wife or husband. If you die with minor children and they're not on the property, even if your will says, hey, everything goes to my spouse, if you have minor children, the Constitution and statutes for the state of Florida, that's not is what is going to happen. So it's very important to get things in order. So the will only governs the assets on death. Now, what people are really focused on right now have to do with advance directives. And what those are generally 3 advance directives. The ones I'm really getting a lot of questions about right now are your healthcare surrogate, as well as your durable power of attorneys. And let me explain what those are. Healthcare surrogate is a document where you designate a person to make your healthcare decisions for you if you're unable to do so for yourself. It also allows that person to get your medical information. So a lot of times when I'm doing estate planning documents, that's one of the documents that is also done. And you can name oftentimes one person and then you can name an alternate person. So you have a backup for that. Now, if you do not have a healthcare surrogate, there by statute, there's something called a healthcare proxy. However, there's not as much rights in that healthcare proxy. They can still make those healthcare decisions, but having that healthcare surrogate gives your surrogate leverage to be able to provide that to the doctor and not be told, well, we can't talk to you because of HIPAA and health privacy reasons. The next document's the durable power of attorney, and that's financial. You only give one that you give a power of attorney to someone that you absolutely trust. Now, what I get oftentimes with couples, they'll say, oh, everything's jointly owned. We don't need that. No, it's not. What can happen is a lot of times couples will have retirement accounts. Your spouse is named as a beneficiary, but if you have a stroke, you're incapacitated, your spouse doesn't have any access to that account because you're not dead. So that power of attorney allows that person to be able to act for you and have access to those funds and manage your affairs, pay your bills, what have you. I do want to stress in Florida, when you sign a power of attorney, it is valid as soon as you sign it. It can be used. We do not have a power of attorney in this state that is contingent on incapacity, which again gets to the point of stressing you better trust the person that you're giving your power of attorney to. The other advance directive, I don't want to leave it out, but is the living will, and that is a direction that if you have an end-stage condition, you're in a persistent vegetative state, or a terminal condition, and your doctor and another doctor are of the medical opinion you are not going to recover, you're essentially saying, do not keep me on life support, let me go. And these documents are great, but I really stress with my families the importance of talking to their children about what it is that they want. So for example, I lost my mom in 2016. She had always told us, and us as my sister and I, that she did not want to have a feeding tube, and we lost her due to a massive stroke. And one of the first questions the hospital asked, do you want a feeding tube? And because of those prior conversations, we could confidently answer, no feeding tube. Hard decision, but by having those conversations ahead of time, you're taking the burden off of your family so that they're not wondering what is it that mom or dad would want. Now, what's very important though is all these documents that I talked about, you have to be competent to be able to do the documents. If you become incapacitated, and let's say you are in the hospital and on a respirator, and you are in a drug-induced coma, and you have not done these documents, then the only way your family can get onto your bank account or to be able to pay your bills while all this is happening is through a guardianship proceeding. And that is a court proceeding, and it's not cheap. I know out there, pretty much kind of like the beginning values of that is around $5,000. Because with a guardianship, what you're doing is you're taking someone's rights away. You are saying this person is incompetent. And so you can't just file it and get guardianship. There's an examining committee that's appointed. There's an attorney for the incapacitated person appointed, and all these people get paid, and it's time consuming. So by doing some pre-planning and having these documents in place, you're really taking the burden off of your family.
So right now, if somebody's sitting home and saying, you know what, this is a time that we have time to talk about it and kind of are motivated to move and take action, is it something that you can help them with while we're stuck at home?
Absolutely. I've had a lot of times I've had a number of people call my office, and the way we're handling it is I've done a few Zoom meetings with clients, just like we're having here today. Also, though, by telephone for those people who may not be comfortable with Zoom. I can generally get all the information done over the phone. I can email the documents for their review. And if they really want to be as safe as possible, they can either get the documents signed on their own, and I can give them those instructions, or sign the documents in my office. Now, generally, when I have clients who are signing documents in my office, we're limiting it to one person a day. And we do take all of those precautions with social distancing as well as disinfecting. Because I want to stress, just drafting the documents, great first step, but it will not do you any good until they are properly signed. So the signing of the documents is very, very important.
That's a great point. So, the other thing is, a lot of my clients and friends have lived somewhere else. They might still be living between two places. And, again, like you said, if somebody were to pass away, talk to the fact of, somebody might have prepared documents in Connecticut or New York or whatever, and they're here, can their family work with you to help them do that? Or do they have to go back to the person they had? Do they have choices, or how does that work?
Good question. So generally, let me just start with the scenario. I've got one going on where the lady, she just passed away and is from New Jersey. And she had a will that was done in New Jersey. So in Florida, any documents that are done in another state will be recognized here in the state of Florida, as long as they're valid in the state where they were prepared. So her New Jersey will is a valid document, and we're actually going to be probating it here in Pinellas County. Now, so what happens is it all gets down to where is the person a resident of. So if they are a Florida resident, any probate proceedings would be here in the state of Florida. But if they are a resident, let's say she had been a resident still of New Jersey, then the probate proceedings would actually have to be filed in New Jersey. Okay. And one little thing I like to bring up, it's real important what information is actually provided on the death certificate. A lot of times when someone has passed away, they're not necessarily thinking clearly. But it's very important is the information being provided accurate? For example, is the person really married? I've had a few cases where domestic partners, of course, they've been together with this person. They feel like they're their wife or husband, but they were never legally married. But on the death certificate, they say they were married. We have to go through a whole court proceeding to get that corrected. So those are some of the little things that can really mess things up. Now, with regard to who you work with, that really gets into whoever the nominated personal representative or executor wants to work with. You are not under any requirement to use the attorney that the person used. It's really who you feel most comfortable and having that working relationship with.
Good. I'm gonna ask you something. I know the answer because I know you've helped people. But if somebody has a family member that's passed away, like the children, and they have questions, you typically will do a short, phone call just to see kind of the bearings of if it's something that makes sense for working together. So people have questions. I mean, sometimes I see people be nervous to call attorneys because they think, oh my gosh, I can't even afford, they hear you guys make big dollars and they're like, start the bill. So I think sometimes they stay afraid, just not knowing what to expect. What would you say?
So generally, and in fact, I've had several calls like this, there might just be a 15-minute consultation just to give that person guidance. So I've had two actually today. The first was a husband who lost his wife. He doesn't need a probate proceeding, but I gave him that guidance that he needed. There were a few things he would need to do, but he can do it himself. Mm-hmm. The other one is going to require a probate proceeding. Mm-hmm. And then it's getting some of that information, what type of probate proceeding would be necessary. In Florida, we have two types, summary proceeding and a formal proceeding. It all depends on the value of assets and the issue regarding creditors as to what type of proceeding is proper. So maybe we'll at least be able to glean some information and give some guidance so that people can make an informed decision.
Great. Well, and so obviously you're still working even through COVID-19. So if people watching this are, sitting there saying, honey, it's time to get this done, they can reach out and, I'll put your information in here and give you a call and find out, how to take that next step. I appreciate all that sharing. I don't know if there's anything else on your mind that you think, again, would be helpful, but I think that you gave us a lot of information that again, people, well, you know what they say is, when the student's ready, the teacher appears, right? I mean, it's not like we haven't all heard this, but sometimes it just isn't, we're not ready to hear it. And there may be people today that are ready to hear it, and you would be a great person to guide them through that process, so.
Well, I really appreciate you thinking of me. I think one of my just parting thoughts is there's a lot on the internet, and people will a lot of times try to research things their own. And there was this mug, and I have to get one. It says, "Don't confuse your Google search with my law degree." There are a lot of nuances out there. I can't stress enough the importance of working with a professional because you can unintentionally cause more problems by not knowing the law. And by working with a licensed attorney for preparing the documents, you can avoid those pitfalls.
Absolutely. We actually share that often in real estate, that people will do those same things, and it's not in the moment, everything you think you're good, and it's not till later the costly mistake that occurred because somebody didn't do something correctly. One of our clients who I think you spoke with, they had a reverse mortgage and the husband took her off the title. And so when he died, it's like, a very tenuous situation for her. She could lose the house. And it's like, again, nobody tried to do anything bad. They were just, a lender's like, oh, she doesn't qualify, so let's just use your, and so again, having good advice can be, the difference between, again, your wishes being carried out, or you really further, impacting your loved ones in a way that you never intended.
Exactly. And one of the big issues out there too, I mean, we do have a lot of people who have been divorced. There may be, second marriage situations, and maybe everyone gets along, maybe they don't. And that's even more important, of having a plan in place so that there's no confusion about what the surviving spouse gets, what the children get, and all of those types of issues that can happen after a loved one has died.
Yeah, great thought to leave us with. Well, like I said, I appreciate you. I think the thing I like best is, I think attorneys are people that sometimes, those of us that aren't in the law feel a little intimidated. And so it's nice to be able to work with someone that is able to, make me feel at ease and answer questions and just, step through some very personal decisions in a way that feels comfortable. And again, I think that's a real gift you have, is just that calmness to help answer and guide people through. And so I really appreciate that about you, and I appreciate you coming and sharing. And I'm sure you'll be, I'm sure there are people that needed to hear this that, got some insight and some comfort and start that thinking of, hey, is today the day we kind of, get our house in order?
Oh, yes. Yes. Well, thank you for thinking of me, and I'm glad I can help.
Absolutely. Hey, have a great weekend, and tell Jack we said hi.
All right. Bye.